Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Saira Mujtaba and with me is R.S. Raghu, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Government of India says it supplied COVID-19 related medical and other assistance to over 150 countries since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic. India successfully test-fires short-range surface-to-air missile from Integrated Test Range, Chandipur, Odisha. External Affairs Ministry of India says it has consistently been supportive of the democratic transition in Myanmar. China warns that U.S. diplomatic boycott of Beijing Winter Olympics could harm the dialogue and cooperation between the two countries. In UAE, 4.5 days work week for public sector workers from January next year. Half Friday, Saturday and Sunday to be holidays. South Africa announces a 21-member squad for 3-match test series at home against India starting December 26. As India marches towards administering 150 crore vaccine doses against COVID-19, news about the fresh corona variant is also causing concern. In this situation, we appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. Please continue following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news. India has supplied COVID-19 related medical and other assistance to over 150 countries since the beginning of the pandemic. Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Bharti Pawar said this in a written reply in Rajya Sabha today. She said since the start of Vaccine Maitri program in January this year, India has supplied over 7 crore 23 lakh doses of COVID vaccine to 94 countries and 2 UN entities in the form of grant and commercial export to date. The minister said during the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic, support in the form of COVID-related equipment and medicines were received from more than 50 countries. India today successfully test-fired short-range surface-to-air missile from Integrated Test Range in Chandipur, Odisha. Defence Research and Development Organisation (DRDO) said the launch was conducted from a vertical launcher against an electronic target at a very low altitude. The flight path of the vehicle, along with health parameters, were monitored using a number of tracking instruments. Today's launch of the system was conducted to validate integrated operation of all weapon system components, including the vertical launcher unit with controller and weapon control system required for future launches of the missile from Indian naval ships. The first trial was conducted on 22nd of February this year, and this is confirmatory trial to prove the consistent performance of the configuration and integrated operation. Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh has congratulated DRDO, Indian Navy and industry for its successful flight test. He said this system will further enhance defence capability of Indian naval ships against aerial threats.
India has said that it is disturbed at the recent verdicts against the former state councillor Aung San Suu Kyi and others by a Myanmar court. Responding to a query about the proceedings against Aung San Suu Kyi and others, the official spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, Arindam Bakshi, said that as a neighbouring democracy, India has been consistently supportive of the democratic transition in Myanmar. He said that India believes in upholding the rule of law in the democratic process. Any development that undermines these processes and accentuates differences is a matter of deep concern. The spokesperson expressed sincere hope that efforts would be made by all sides to advance the path of dialogue, keeping in mind the nation's future. On Monday, a Myanmar court had sentenced the deposed state councillor of Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, and former President Win Myint to 4 years in jail on charges of inciting violence against the military and breaking the natural disaster laws of the country. China has warned that a U.S. diplomatic boycott of Beijing Winter Olympics could harm the dialogue and cooperation between the two countries in important areas. Responding to the U.S. move, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said in Beijing on Tuesday that China opposes the boycott and would take resolute countermeasures. He urged the U.S. to stop bringing politics into sports, adding that the boycott went against Olympic principles. On Monday, the White House in a statement said that U.S. government officials would boycott the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing because of China's egregious human rights abuses and atrocities in Xinjiang, although U.S. athletes are free to travel to Beijing to compete in the Games. The U.S. boycott comes just weeks after U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping met virtually in an effort to ease tensions in bilateral relations. Activists have long called for a boycott of the Beijing Winter Games in protest of China's human rights abuses in Xinjiang and Tibet and its political crackdown on Hong Kong. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a special program, Bangladesh, a quest for linguist identity and the birth of a nation.
তোমাকে পাওয়ার জন্যে হে স্বাধীনতা, তোমাকে পাওয়ার জন্যে আর কতবার ভাসতে হবে রক্ত গঙ্গায়, আর কতবার দেখতে হবে খাণ্ডব দাহন।
Language is the blood of the soul into which thoughts run and out of which they grow. Language connects people and the values enshrined live through ages. In the case of Bangladesh, it is the proverbial truth. If we look back, the basic inspiration of the freedom struggle of the Bengali-speaking people of Pakistan came mainly from their quest for a linguistic identity. The history of class struggle and multiculturalism supported the language movement, a stark reminder of the liberation struggle.
বাংলার মাটি, বাংলার জল, বাংলার বায়ু, বাংলার ফল, পূর্ণ হোক, পূর্ণ হোক, পূর্ণ হোক, হে ভগবান।
Talking to All India Radio, former Bangladesh liberation fighter Lieutenant Colonel Sajjad Ali Zahir opines that fight for mother tongue is not just a struggle for reinstatement of the respective vernacular. It is also a reflection at times of the resistance to the persecution to a language.
Based on the language, our nationalism, our patriotism grew, and which resulted in the liberation of Bangladesh. We love Bangla, we love the language. The Bangla is a symbol of our sovereignty, our devotion, our sacrifice, and our future. And this Bangla language is one of the sweetest languages in the world, and it has the contribution of great poets like Rabindranath Tagore and Qazi Nazrul Islam. The Bangla language was the main spirit of our liberation war. We sang songs and marched towards the enemy in Bangla. We raised the flag of Bangladesh in every liberated area and sang the song of Tagore, which has become our national anthem. So Bangladesh and Bangla language are synonymous. This is our beloved language and we love it all.
Let's elaborate the root causes of the movement. Immediately after the partition of India in 1947, Bengalis were the majority community of the newly emerged Pakistan. The Urdu-speaking Pakistanis were just 3% of the total population, though Urdu was widely understood and used in West Pakistan.
To understand why language politics played such a defining role in Bangladesh liberation war, linguist Inakshi Nandi, JNU, said that the language is first and foremost the marker of identity. The vast Pakistani language such as Punjabi, Sindhi and Pashto were written in Urdu or Arabic script. On the contrary, the Bengali language had its own script different from that of Arabic.
To understand why language politics played such a defining role in the Bangladesh independence movement, or Mukti Juddho as we call it in Bangla, we have to first understand the role language plays in a society, and especially in a polity. So language is first and foremost a marker of identity for its speakers, but it also has the potential to give one access to positions of power and influence in their land. So when the Bangla-speaking population were denied that, the Bengali language movement or Bhasha Andolan erupted, because it was the first time that people understood the significance of a language in the life of a community and in the life of a nation.
However, the language controversy of undivided Pakistan started even before the emergence of the country. Dr. Ziauddin Ahmed, a former Vice-Chancellor of the Aligarh University at that time, had suggested that Urdu should be the state or official language of the future state of Pakistan. Simultaneously, Dr. Muhammad Shahidullah, a noted Bengali linguist from Dhaka University, opposed the suggestion and put forth arguments in favor of Bengali as the future state language of Pakistan. He wrote if Urdu instead of Bengali was used in courts of law and universities, it would be tantamount to political slavery.
August 1947 saw India getting its freedom from the British and the birth of a nation called Pakistan. The newly Christian Pakistan was, however, divided into East and West Pakistan. The western region had predominantly Urdu and Punjabi-speaking people, whereas East Pakistan people spoke Bengali. East Pakistan became an internal colony of West Pakistan.
On 21st March 1947, Muhammad Ali Jinnah gave a severe blow to Bengali nationalism from the racecourse ground in Dhaka. He asserted that the national language of Pakistan would be Urdu and no other language. The same announcement was made again at the convocation of the Dhaka University on the 24th of March. East Pakistan became a union of a non-communal consciousness on that day. People from all walks of life formed a mass resistance irrespective of religion and caste. Despite opposition, even within the ruling Muslim League, Urdu was imposed as the national language of East Pakistan.
By 1951, the demand of the state language movement continued to grow. On 23rd February, the educationists, writers, journalists and intellectuals issued a memorandum to the then Chief Minister, Nurul Amin, for the introduction of Bengali language at all levels.
The agitation reached its peak in 1952 on the 21st of February. Section 144 was imposed all over East Pakistan. From that morning onwards, students started gathering in groups in front of the Faculty of Arts in Dhaka University. The objective was to be vocal in demanding Bengali language and to ensure full rights of the mother language. The procession came on to the roads violating Section 144. Police fired and several were killed. The roads of East Pakistan became stained with blood. A mass movement erupted against the Pakistani government to protect the dignity of the mother tongue. As a result, the Muslim League suffered a miserable defeat in the general elections of 1954.
Ultimately, the government of Pakistan was compelled to declare Bangla as one of the state languages in the 1956 constitution. The language movement influenced directly and indirectly all political, social and cultural activities since 1952 in the then East Pakistan. Talking about Bangladesh Bhasha Andolan, linguist Inakshi Nandi said that it was for the first time a nation was created on linguistic lines.
The Bangladesh Bhasha Andolan or the independence movement is of course unique because it was possibly the first time that a nation was created along linguistic lines. The language became the rallying point around which the movement developed. So Pakistan pointed to Urdu as the national language. They ignored and neglected the diversity of their own country. And when Urdu became the national language, which means that it became the language of government, the governance, the schools, it became the language around which the identity of the nation was going to be created. That automatically made Bangla native speakers second-class citizens in their own country. It meant that the Bangla speakers would not be able to access positions of power in the government or in many other places which needed you to be fluent in Urdu. And native speakers of Urdu or people in Western Pakistan who had more access to Urdu than Bengalis automatically had a very unfair advantage over them. So the entire movement, Bhasha Andolan, was basically a demand to recognize Bangla as a second official language of Pakistan, which Pakistan didn't want to do because it wanted to create a very unified national identity on the basis of one language. This demand for Bangla as an official language of Pakistan resulted in a lot of violence, a lot of deaths in Dhaka University, and the death of 5 students specifically in 1952 on the 21st of February is the trigger point basically towards this movement. And that day is now memorialized as Mother Language Day, Matribhasha Divas in Bangladesh.
This movement invoked the self-belief of the people and the nationalistic ideas. It was aided by the education movement of 1962, the Six-Point Movement of 1966, the mass uprising of 1969, the elections of 1970 that culminated into the liberation of the struggle of 1971. Joy Bangla was the only slogan at home and abroad during the liberation war of Bangladesh in 1971.
Talking about the significance of Language Martyrs Day, veteran Bangladesh Lieutenant Colonel Sajjad Ali Zahir said, "The people of Bangladesh take immense pride in the language movement and observing 21st February as the Language Martyrs Day long before UNESCO declared it as International Mother Languages Day in 1999.
In 1947, when Pakistan got its independence, 56.5% people used to speak in Bangla and 3.9% people used to speak in Urdu. Mr. Jinnah made Urdu the state language and the protest started. And this protest was brutally suppressed by Pakistani forces on 21 February 1952. And we celebrate that day as the Language Martyrs Day.
Bengali language achieved the status it deserved and acted as a catalyst for the liberation of Bangladesh. Professor Chidananda Bhattacharjee, head of the Department English, Rabindra Bharati University, elaborates how the new Bengali literature, songs and cinema emerged because of the liberation war.
War for Liberation of Bangladesh 1971 produced so much of literature and songs and so many, artistic responses in Bangladesh. Compared to that, our production here in West Bengal has been more tenuous, but definitely people from West Bengal rejoiced almost infinitely at the suggestion of their brothers and sisters of Bangladesh, ultimately, fighting their way through to victory. And it was almost our victory. So many songs, so many poems, so many magazine articles, so many short stories were written. Most of them are now trivia or ephemeral. They haven't found their way to permanent literature, very renowned, well-known things, but some of them have stuck out. The poems written by Vishnu Dev, Shankar Ghosh, Birendra Chattopadhyay, to name just a few, Sunil Gangopadhyay, Dinesh Das, Kavita Singho, Amiya Chakraborty, Buddhadev Bosu, even some of them like Tarashankar Bandyopadhyay, those who haven't written much poetry, they also started writing poetry, like Buddhadev Bosu wrote poetry. Achinta Kumar Sengupta, himself son of Noakhali, who came over, or Sunil Gangopadhyay, a son of Faridpur, wrote the famous period novel Purba Paschim, which starts off from the days before independence and goes through the Bangladesh war to the 80s. But while treating the Bangladesh war, he is absolutely careful in his details. And Tarashankar Bandyopadhyay, son of this part of Bengal, writes Ekti Kalo Meyer Kotha, a wonderful, almost a chronicle piece for Bangladesh war. That's how our cup is also full.
A tragic tale with a happy ending. All India Radio remembers the unsung language soldiers who laid their lives for the sanctity of Bengal.
That was today's hotspot, and in some more news, ahead of the visit of President Ramnath Kovind to Bangladesh from 15th to 17th December, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla is visiting Bangladesh to prepare for the high-level visit. Our Dhaka correspondent has filed this story.
Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla arrived in Dhaka today on a two-day official visit to prepare for the forthcoming visit of President Ramnath Kovind to take part in the Bangladesh Victory Day celebrations between December 15th and 17th. Foreign Secretary Shringla was received at the airport by his Bangladeshi counterpart Masood bin Momen. During his visit, the Foreign Secretary will hold a meeting with the Bangladesh Foreign Secretary Masood bin Momen. He will also call on the Foreign Minister Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen. Mr. Shringla will also call on the Minister for Road Transport and Bridges and Awami League General Secretary Obaidul Qadir today. He is scheduled to call on Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina tomorrow. India and Bangladesh are jointly commemorating 50 years of the establishment of their diplomatic ties. The Ministry of External Affairs said that Foreign Secretary's visit to Bangladesh will provide an opportunity to review the wide-ranging cooperation between the two countries. Rajesh Jha, AIR News, Dhaka.
Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has called for recommitting the two countries towards further strengthening the long-standing dynamic partnership between Bangladesh and India. Delivering her video address at the event organized by the Indian Council of World Affairs (ICWA) in Delhi on the occasion of Maitri Divas on Monday, Prime Minister Hasina said that the golden jubilee of establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries is a milestone in the journey of bilateral relations between Bangladesh and India. Addressing the meeting, Foreign Secretary of India Harshvardhan Shringla said the Prime Ministers of India and Bangladesh decided to designate the historic Day of India, granting recognition to Bangladesh as an independent and sovereign nation in 1971 as Maitri Divas. It demonstrates the resilience, durability and strength of our bonds.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. The United Arab Emirates will shift to a working week of 4.5 days with a Saturday-Sunday weekend from the start of next year to better align its economy with global markets. Meanwhile, private companies will be free to choose their own working week. The Gulf nation currently has a Friday to Saturday weekend. Over the past year, the UAE has taken measures to make its economy more attractive to foreign investment and talent at a time of growing economic rivalry with Saudi Arabia. The government said longer weekend would improve employees' work-life balance. According to government, the move would ensure smooth financial, trade and economic transactions with countries that follow a Saturday-Sunday weekend, facilitating stronger international business links and opportunities for UAE-based and multinational firms. The change will impact state entities like the central bank, which would communicate details about the new working hours to commercial banks. The UAE has liberalized laws regarding cohabitation before marriage, alcohol and personal status laws, in addition to the introduction of longer-term visas to lure businesses and talent. In Indonesia, the National Disaster Agency has said that at least 34 people have been killed in a volcanic eruption on Sunday. Mount Semeru engulfed local villages in volcanic ash and hot mud on the island of Java, forcing thousands to flee. Some 17 other people are still missing. Emergency teams and rescue dogs continue to look for survivors and bodies in the debris. The operation has been complicated by dangerous conditions and bad weather in the area. The volcano also remains active with smaller eruptions continuing since the weekend. Indonesian President Joko Widodo visited the area on Tuesday. Mount Semeru rises 12,000 feet above sea level and is among Indonesia's almost 130 active volcanoes. The last time it erupted was in December 2020, forcing thousands of residents to take shelter. Indonesia sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an area where continental plates meet, causing frequent volcanic and seismic activity. International Civil Aviation Day is being observed on 7th of December. We have this report.
The day, organized by International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO), is a UN body that takes care of international standards for aviation safety. The ICAO is an autonomous UN body accountable for keeping up with the safety standards of international aviation. The aim behind celebrating the day is to create awareness across the world about the importance of international civil aviation to the social and economic development of states. The ICAO was established on 7th December 1944 in the interest of securing international cooperation and consistency in civil aviation matters. During the same year, the International Services Transit Agreement and the International Air Transport Agreement were also signed. In 1994, ICAO initiated International Civil Aviation Day to recognize its 50th anniversary. During this day, ICAO organizes various activities and events such as seminars, educational sessions, news announcements on international civil aviation topics, and many others. ICAO gets support from governments, organizations, companies, and even individuals. Subhadra Ramachandran for World News.
South Africa has announced a 21-member squad for the 3-match test series at home against India, starting on December 26. The series will form part of the new cycle of the ICC World Test Championship and will be played at 3 venues: Supersport Park in Centurion, the first test; the Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg, second test; and Newlands in Cape Town, third test. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Wall Street Journal writes, Saudi Arabia pleads for missile defense resupply as its arsenal runs low. South China Morning Post reports France to deepen ties with Asia after losing privileged partnership with Australia in AUKUS snub, diplomat says. Sputnik News writes, Dominic Raab hits back at Afghanistan evacuation criticism, complaints time window was too short. The Globe and the Mail says, Canadian traveller forced to stay in quarantine facility after negative COVID-19 test. The Washington Post says, Biden's Summit for Democracy includes countries that hardly seem to qualify. The Guardian writes, China attacks US diplomatic boycott of Winter Games as travesty of Olympic spirit. And Financial Times says, Western leaders present united front ahead of Biden-Putin talks on Ukraine.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Government of India says it supplied COVID-19 related medical and other assistance to over 150 countries since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic. India successfully test-fires short-range surface-to-air missile from integrated test range in Chandipur, Orissa. External Affairs Ministry of India says it has consistently been supportive of the democratic transition in Myanmar. China warns that US diplomatic boycott of Beijing Winter Olympics could harm the dialogue and cooperation between the two countries. In UAE, 4.5 days work week for public sector workers from January next year. Half Friday, Saturday and Sunday to be holidays. South Africa announces a 21-member squad for 3-match test series at home against India starting December 26. India is celebrating the 152nd birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Finland. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.